Ever get the feeling that what's happening in D.C. is like a million miles away from your own bank account?
Oh, absolutely. It can feel like two completely separate universes sometimes.
Right. Well, today we're going to look at a story that kind of slams those two worlds together.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the story?
We're talking Marjorie Taylor Greene, specifically some of her investments in U.S. Treasury bills, T-bills.
T-bills. Gotcha. Safe, solid, not exactly known for making you a fortune overnight.
Exactly. But the timing of these buys, well, it happened right before Donald Trump announced some pretty major new tariffs. And that's what makes this whole thing kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I can see why you picked this one. Makes you wonder, can you turn political savvy into a winning stock strategy?
That's what we're here to figure out. But first, let's make sure everyone's up to speed on what T-bills actually are. Think of it like this. You want to stash some cash away for a little while, somewhere super safe?
Like the adult version of stuffing it under your mattress.
Yeah, pretty much. U.S. Treasury bills, they're like short-term IOUs from the government. Really low risk, which also means, the returns aren't going to blow your mind.
Right. You're basically lending money to the government for a tiny bit of interest. Safe as houses, but not going to make you rich quick.
Exactly. But in times when things are a little shaky, a lot of investors see T-bills as a safe haven. Like, park your money here, ride out the storm kind of thing.
Makes sense.
So our mission today is to unravel this whole timeline. When did Marjorie Taylor Greene buy these T-bills? How does that line up with Trump's tariff announcement?
And how did the market react?
Right, we're going to lean on publicly available reports, financial disclosures, all that good stuff.
Which, by the way, is a good thing. Transparency is what lets us have these conversations.
100%. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Reports, especially from Capital Trades, show that Marjorie Taylor Greene made 3 pretty big investments in T-bills. We're talking between $100,000 and $250,000 each.
That's a decent chunk of change.
Not small potatoes. And these purchases, they happened on March 16th, March 19th, and March 24th. Now, here's the thing. Was it just T-bills she was buying, or was there other stuff going on in her portfolio around this time?
Well, she wasn't putting all her eggs in one basket, that's for sure. Reports show she also picked up some stock in Apple, AbbVie, and Costco.
Okay, so big names, solid companies.
Yeah, it seems like she was maybe shifting towards a more cautious approach overall, less risky stuff, more stability.
Interesting. A bit of a portfolio de-risking, you might say.
Possibly.
Right, now let's fast forward to what some are calling Liberation Day.
Liberation Day.
That's when Trump dropped this bombshell about the new tariffs. Can you walk us through that announcement? When was it? What did he say? All that.
Okay, picture this. Wednesday, White House, Rose Garden.
I'm picturing it.
Trump steps up, declares that foreign trade practices, they've created a national emergency.
National emergency, strong words.
Right. Then he goes on to propose a minimum 10% tariff on goods from, get this, all exporting countries.
Whoa, that's a blanket statement.
And it was set to kick in that Saturday. So very quick turnaround.
Wow.
He also mentioned something about reciprocal tariffs on over 90 countries. The whole goal, he said, was to shrink trade deficits. And he even threw in a very Trump-esque prediction.
Oh, I bet I know what's coming. Something about America being great or wealthy.
You got it. He said, and I quote, "We're going to make America wealthy again by April 9."
Classic. Right, so how did Wall Street react to all of this? I remember reading that, let's just say the market didn't exactly throw a party.
You remember correctly. The immediate reaction, not good. The Dow Jones, that's the big one, dropped 250 points.
Ouch.
Yeah, a sign that major companies were not thrilled about this news. The S&P 500, which tracks a wider range of companies, it also took a hit, losing 100 points.
Okay, so across the board, not a good day for the markets.
And then there's the NASDAQ futures.
Those are often seen as a signal for what's going to happen with tech stocks.
Right, and they absolutely plummeted over 400 points.
So this initial dip, that was just the start, right? Because by the end of the week, things had gotten way worse.
Way worse. By Saturday night, the Dow had plunged a whopping 2,339 points.
That's just wild.
It was one of the worst weeks for the market since the COVID crash. So yeah, Trump's Liberation Day turned into a bit of a market bloodbath.
Okay, so let's connect the dots here. We've got Marjorie Taylor Greene buying a bunch of low-risk T-bills right before a major announcement from a political ally.
An announcement that then sends the market into a tailspin.
Exactly. So the big question is, do you think Greene had some inside scoop about these tariffs before she made those investments?
It's the question everyone's asking. Now, to be fair, Politicians have to disclose their trades publicly, which is how we know all this. But here's the thing. People in power, they often have access to information that the average investor doesn't.
What, from those classified briefings or just being in those political circles?
No, exactly. So it's natural to be a little skeptical about the timing, especially given Greene's, well, let's just say she's a pretty vocal supporter of Trump.
Put it mildly.
Yeah. And claiming it was just a coincidence, it might be a tough sell for some folks.
I could see that.
And, this isn't exactly a new phenomenon. There's a whole history of members of Congress from both sides of the aisle making trades that, looking back, seem awfully well-timed.
Right, like Senator Richard Burr selling off stock before everyone realized just how bad COVID was going to be.
Exactly. Or those profitable stock option trades by Nancy Pelosi's husband.
Right before certain policies changed. It definitely creates this perception that maybe there's a different set of rules for Washington insiders.
Definitely fuels that perception. And it feeds into a bigger concern about conflicts of interest and the ethics of congressional investing.
Okay, and speaking of Nancy Pelosi, there's this interesting contrast in how her finances were impacted around the same time. Apparently, her net worth took a big hit after Trump's tariff announcement. Can you fill us in on that?
Sure. According to data from Quiver Quantitative, Pelosi's net worth dropped by, get this, $7 million after those tariffs and the market fallout.
$7 million. Wow.
Yeah. And that really highlights Greene's potential insulation from those losses. While Pelosi, she's still incredibly wealthy, but the fact that one powerful figure took a hit while another seemed prepared, it raises even more questions.
It does. Like one person playing defense and the other maybe having a heads up.
Something like that.
Okay. So what was Marjorie Taylor Greene's public response to all of this? Did she express any concerns about the market tanking?
Nope. Not at all. In fact, she was very vocal in her support for the tariffs.
Really?
Yeah. She gave an interview on the Welcome to MAGAland podcast, and the Daily Mail reported that she praised Trump's actions, called them extremely generous, and talked about fair reciprocity.
Generous. That's one way to describe tariffs, which are essentially taxes that consumers often end up paying through higher prices.
Right. And she was even quoted as saying the tariffs were, quote, half of what they're charging us, end quote.
Okay.
She went on to say, President Trump is doing the right thing for the American people, and I don't think any other country can complain. Which, of course, doesn't take into account the very likely possibility of other countries hitting back with their own tariffs.
Right, which historically hasn't ended well for American farmers, manufacturers, or, for that matter, anyone with money in the stock market.
Exactly. So while she's publicly cheering on the move, her own investments suggest she might have been expecting a less than rosy market response.
Fascinating. So this brings us to the bigger issue of, well, can members of Congress trade in the markets? And is it ethical? Can you give us a quick rundown of the rules?
Sure. The main thing we've got is the SDOC Act, passed back in 2012. The goal was to prevent insider trading by public officials by making them disclose their stock trades and other transactions.
Okay, so transparency is key.
Right. But a lot of people argue that it's got some major loopholes. Proving insider trading is super hard, there's not always enough enforcement, and the penalties can be kind of a slap on the wrist.
So technically, Greene followed the rules by reporting her trades. But the argument is that the whole point of preventing conflicts of interest and profiting from insider info, that's not really being achieved.
That's a common criticism. Even with disclosure, the concern remains. Can officials act on information that the rest of us don't have? It's a big ethical question.
It is.
And when these well-timed trades start to feel like business as usual, that's when public trust really starts to erode.
Because it makes people wonder, are these officials working for us or for their own portfolios?
Exactly.
And to add another layer to this, the reporting also gave some context about that Welcome to MAGAland podcast. It wasn't all just about tariffs. There were some pretty strong opinions being voiced on other topics, too.
Yeah, like a call for the death penalty in a completely separate case, which just goes to show the kind of environment where this is all being discussed.
Right, and how much support there is for Trump's policies, even if they might have broader economic consequences. So to sum it all up, it seems like while Greene followed the letter of the law with her disclosures, the timing of her T-bill purchases raises some serious ethical flags.
Absolutely. It really boils down to this ongoing debate. Do the current rules actually prevent lawmakers from using their positions to benefit financially in ways that most people can't?
It's a tough question. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something I want you to think about. Beyond just disclosing finances, What responsibilities do elected officials have when it comes to their personal investments, especially when those investments are so closely tied to their roles in government and their ability to potentially impact or even predict how the economy is going to move? It really makes you think about the whole foundation of trust and accountability that we as citizens expect from our government.
Couldn't agree more. It's a question we all need to be asking.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.